Well, today's the day, guys. I am stripping my S10 down to the frame because we're going to start doing some welding. Now, stripping down a Chevy S10 is really not that hard, as you can see. I mean, there's a few bolts, but you know, anybody can actually strip this thing down. Now it's time to pull that old blown out motor out of my S10. It's actually pretty easy. That's one motor mount. That's two. Looks like I'm gonna have to replace these damn things. Oh well. Might as well do it while I have the motor out, right? Okay, here's the situation. This thing, the engine transmission, will not come out without removing some stuff. Yeah, had to remove the exhaust cross pipes. Had to take that off, basically with a sawzall. Number two, I had to take my steering gearbox down because the exhaust manifold actually hits that. It's too close. So I had to move all that stuff out of the way. That's why I'm struggling to get this thing out of the truck. But we're gonna get there, promise. Now I know what you guys are thinking. Where in the heck is the second half of the engine build on this S10? I promise you guys, I have it filmed. I just haven't edited it yet. But this episode, I am dedicating solely to taking apart the S10 because we need to build that frame. We got to build a firm foundation because, like I said, this thing is getting hydraulics and it needs to be strong. I'm just showing you that I'm removing the old motor because, like I said, it's getting a new motor, one proudly built by Gas Diesel Garage. Now the real fun begins. Dumping off that truck bed and flipping it over on its side, and I'll get to that later. Next thing I do is I take my engine hoist and I disconnect all the body mounts that hold the cab on. I jack this thing on up, and then I end up pushing the thing right off of my frame. Well, now I'm down to the frame. Just need to get rid of this cab here because we're not using this. I have something else in store for that. But I'm able to drag this thing, believe it or not, out of my yard with a little bit of help from my Chevy Silverado. Tell you what, my neighbors think I'm crazy. Dragging a truck body down the road and putting it in front of my house, but of course city got me on that one, so city was gonna find me if I actually left it there. So what I had to do is I had to personally put this thing in a little utility trailer and take it to the junkyard myself, unfortunately. Okay, I pick a wonderful time to start on my lowrider suspension build. My Chevy S10. There's a few changes to the build, and I'll let you in on that in another video. But the point of this video is to start cleaning up this S10 frame and prepare it because it's getting hydraulics. Yes, we're going to juice my Chevy S10. And I got a lot of work ahead of me, so let's go ahead and clean this up. Hope I just don't freeze my ass off.
You guys are probably wondering why I won't take this frame to a sandblasting place. Well, number one is that I'm too cheap to do that. And then number two is I'm not sandblasting it in front of my house in my driveway, because later on after I'm done I'm gonna have to clean up all that sand, so I'm too lazy for that part. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna hand grind all this stuff off. You know, wire wheel with a flat disc, all that good stuff. It's able to actually get in there pretty good, especially with that C channel down there, because yeah. And if you're wondering, I actually did try to sandblast it myself, but that little Amazon tool didn't work worth the damn, so I just continued with my die grinder and the flap wheel. If you guys are wondering, I did clean off the frame with soap and water and my pressure washer. As you can see, I did pretty good with my die grinder and my flap wheel disc. I mean, it actually got down to the metal pretty good. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm spraying this. I'm only putting the primer on it so I can protect the metal, because this is going to be an extensive job and it's going to have to go outside every once in a while, so I don't want the thing to rust. So yes, I am putting stuff on it. Now, continuing on, I have some more stuff to strip, like the spare tire, that fuel tank, all the brake lines, the EGR box, or charcoal canister, whatever you want to call it. But I still got some more stripping to do.
This season, Chevy brings classic pairings, cookies and milk, mistletoe and kisses, and your holiday plans and a new Chevy. Silverado 1500 gives you power and capability with 430 pound-feet of torque to haul your holiday tree. Equinox EV and the all-new Equinox offer award-winning quality and style.
Now, so far so good. This frame is actually looking pretty good until I start cutting it up.
Now, it's not necessary for me to have leaf spring suspension, so I'm just gonna cut it on off because we gotta put a 4-link in it with some hind joints so we can get all that articulation that we need so we can start lifting that thing to the sky. Let's go ahead and cut that stuff off. And while we're at it, we're gonna get rid of these shocks as well because there's no sense in having them. I just wanted to get a brief estimate on where their axle is sitting, so it should be straight down there, so when I build my bridge I can have it at least semi squared up. Well, hopefully, but we'll see. And there's one other thing I do before I take this rear end out is that I put some paint or primer, whatever. The primer is basically just a marker so I can see exactly where basically the top level is, if that makes sense. So, you know, when I start to take all the damn shackles and the U-joints or U-bolts out, I can see where this thing was sitting so I can get my bridge or my reinforced area a little bit level, if you will. Gonna use my level anyways, but I kind of like to know where my markers are pretty much at. Now that the rear end's out, the real fun begins. That is welding, reinforcing, and making this thing strong, because when I tell you, when this thing's going to 3-wheel, it's going to 3-wheel. And to give you guys some context on what I mean by a stout suspension or frame or reinforcing, there's my 3/16 gauge metal that I need for the frame. That square tubing there, or square box, whatever you want to call it, that's going to be for my frame. And you see this 1 1/4 3/16 pipe there, that's going to be my 4-link, and it's going to have Heim joints, all that good stuff, all that good jazz. And let me show you on what I need to do to reinforce this Chevy frame. See, the Chevy frames, they're boxed in to a certain point. They're boxed in up to right past the cab here. I don't understand why they did that. I mean, you'd think that the rear, the pickup bed, holds a lot of weight. But it's not gonna be very good for me because this thing's gonna be twisting and bouncing and all that good stuff. So I need to box that stuff in. I need to box it in from here all the way back. And I need to build my bridge, of course, because I have my marks right here where the axle is gonna be sitting. So I need to build my bridge. And for the rear end there, I want to put, of course, a bunch of metal on the bottom to reinforce it, and put my power balls. Yes, it's getting the power ball ends for the cylinders. So this is gonna be good stuff. I'm excited, and hope you guys stay with me because this thing's gonna be epic.
Now that I got the rear end out, I need to go ahead and start cleaning all the scale off just like I did the frame, because reinforcing the rear axle, you're gonna want to have everything clean, because all the plates that I'm going to be putting on this, I need to be able to weld these things strong onto the rear axle. So that's what we're in the middle of doing right this second.
Now, it's been said, of course, when you're reinforcing these axles, any axle actually, any rear wheel drive axle, is that you need to put a bead around the tube that goes into the differential itself. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to put a bead of weld all the way around and seal that thing up tight.
Now, I found it easier when I'm welding the tubes on an axle. Just leave the wheels on and then flip it upside down as you see here, and I'm able to turn the axle while I'm welding, so I won't have to keep on stopping and going and stopping and going with welding, because that's a no-go. So I'm able to put a continuous bead around it. And this is what I'm talking about. A complete sealed tube to the differential. Now, this ain't done. Still got a lot more reinforcing to do, so stay tuned.